Everyone knows the Mustangs, Corvettes, and Chargers. But what about the forgotten speed demons that time left behind? These 12 American beasts were brutally fast, shockingly rare, and packed with untamed horsepower. Some were too wild for the streets, others vanished before they could make history. One thing's for sure, you won't believe these monsters ever existed. Buckle up for a journey into the lost legends of 1960s American speed. The 1967 Bizzarrini 5300 GT Strada is one of those rare automotive treasures that only the most dedicated enthusiasts and collectors truly appreciate. It is a car born from passion, shaped by racing pedigree, and built with an unconventional mix of European craftsmanship and American muscle. Despite being a formidable machine that could hold its own against Ferraris and Lamborghinis of the era, it never quite reached the same level of recognition. Yet for those who know its story, the Bizzarrini 5300 GT Strada stands as one of the greatest sports cars of the 1960s, a machine that combined beauty, speed, and engineering brilliance in a way that few others did. Giotto Bizzarrini, the man behind this creation, was no ordinary car designer. Having worked as an engineer for Ferrari, he played a key role in developing the legendary 250 GTO, one of the most celebrated race cars in history. However, his relationship with Enzo Ferrari soured, and after leaving the company, he went on to collaborate with Iso Rivolta, helping them create the Isogrifo. Eventually, he decided to build a car under his own name, and thus, the Bizzarrini 5300 GT was born. It was a car that carried the DNA of a thoroughbred race machine but was designed for the road. Unlike its Italian contemporaries, which relied on sophisticated but high-maintenance V12 engines, the Bizzarrini took a different approach. Under its long sculpted hood sat an American heart, a Chevrolet 327 cubic inch small block V8, the same type of engine found in Corvettes of the era. In stock form, it produced around 365 horsepower, but with minor tuning, it could easily push past 400. This made the 5300 GT Strada an absolute rocket, with a top speed of 174 mph, putting it on par with the best that Ferrari and Lamborghini had to offer. But it wasn't just about straight-line speed. The Bizzarrini was a masterclass in balance and handling. With its engine mounted far behind the front axle, the car achieved an almost perfect front-to-rear weight distribution. The chassis was low and rigid, with a fully independent suspension setup that gave it razor-sharp handling. Many who have driven it say it feels more like a race car than a grand tourer, with immediate responses to steering inputs and a raw mechanical connection to the road. The design was another masterpiece. With a sleek, aerodynamic body hand-built in Italy, the 5300 GT had the curves and aggression of a true exotic. The long nose, wide stance, and aggressive air intakes made it look fast even when it was standing still. The interior was minimalistic but purposeful, with a race-inspired dashboard, low-slung seating position, and a no-frills approach to luxury. This was a car built for speed, not comfort, and every element of its design reinforced that. For those lucky enough to own one, the experience was unforgettable. One owner described his first drive in a Bizzarrini 5300 GT Strada. "The first time I sat in this beauty, I couldn't believe it wasn't an Italian V12 under the hood. It's so light that it feels like it accelerates effortlessly. The sound of that Chevy V8 roaring behind the firewall is intoxicating, and the car just grips the road like it was made for the track. The only problem? Finding parts and someone who knows how to work on it is nearly impossible." And that was one of the biggest challenges with the 5300 GT. While the Chevy V8 was reliable and easy to maintain, the rest of the car was anything but. The hand-built nature of the chassis and body meant that parts were not interchangeable, and every car had its own quirks. Bizzarrini was a small operation, producing fewer than 150 cars in total, which meant that there was never a large support network or dealership infrastructure to keep them running. Over time, many fell into disrepair or were forgotten, making the surviving examples even more rare today. Another issue was branding. Unlike Ferrari, Maserati, or Lamborghini, Bizzarrini was a name that few people recognize. The company lacked the marketing power and financial stability of its competitors. And despite creating an incredible car, it struggled to attract buyers. The price was high, the availability was limited, and without a well-known badge on the hood, many customers opted for more established brands. Yet despite these challenges, the 5300 GT Strada remains one of the greatest hidden gems of the 1960s. It had the speed to match Ferrari, the handling to rival Porsche, and the reliability of an American V8. For those who appreciate automotive history, it represents the ultimate fusion of European design and American performance. Today, finding a Bizzarrini 5300 GT Strada is nearly impossible, and when one does appear at auction, it commands an extremely high price. Collectors who know its history understand that this is not just another classic car, it is a piece of automotive art, a forgotten Ferrari killer. The 1969 AMC AMX III is one of the greatest American what-ifs in automotive history, a supercar that was almost too good to be true. At a time when AMC was best known for sensible economy cars and quirky offbeat designs, they dared to dream of something that could take on the best of Europe. A mid-engine, high-performance machine with exotic Italian styling and a big American V8, the AMX III had all the ingredients of a world-class supercar. Yet despite its incredible potential, it was never given the chance to shine. With only 6 completed before the project was abruptly canceled, it remains one of the rarest and most fascinating American cars ever built. AMC at the time was not exactly in the business of making high-end sports cars. Their lineup was filled with practical sedans and compact cars, with a few muscle cars like the AMX and Javelin thrown in. But the late 1960s were an era of bold experimentation, and AMC President Roy Chapin Jr. and Chief of Design Dick Teague saw an opportunity to do something extraordinary. The plan was ambitious: create an American alternative to the Lamborghini Miura, Ferrari 365 GTB4 Daytona, and Diez Tomaso Pantera. It would be a sleek, mid-engine machine with European styling, American power, and the ability to stand toe-to-toe with the greatest sports cars of the era. To bring this vision to life, AMC turned to Italian expertise. They partnered with legendary designer Giotto Bizzarrini, the same man behind the Bizzarrini 5300 GT and a key figure in Ferrari's development of the 250 GTO. The car's body was sculpted by Idol Design under the direction of Giorgetto Giugiaro, ensuring it had the kind of sleek, dramatic lines one would expect from an Italian supercar. The result was stunning: a low-slung, aggressive coupe with wide haunches, pop-up headlights, and an unmistakably exotic presence. Underneath that striking bodywork was an American heart, the tried-and-true 390 cubic inch AMC V8, tuned to produce at around 340 horsepower. Paired with a 4-speed manual gearbox and placed in a mid-engine layout, this was not just some rebodied muscle car, it was a genuine high-performance machine. The car's lightweight construction, independent suspension, and aerodynamic design gave it handling characteristics far beyond anything AMC had ever built. Testing in Europe showed that the AMX III was capable of hitting a top speed of around 160 km/h, putting it firmly in supercar territory. One of the few people fortunate enough to drive the AMX III recalled the experience. You sit inside, feel like you're in a spaceship, fire up the engine, and realize AMC really tried to make a supercar. Too bad they only made a handful. The V8 behind your head has this deep, menacing rumble, and when you get on the bow, the thing just pulls like a freight train. It's balanced, tight, and nothing like the muscle cars AMC was known for. This could have been huge if they'd been able to build it. But just as the AMX III was proving itself to be a serious contender, reality came crashing down. AMC was a small company with limited resources, and producing a low-volume, high-cost supercar was financially risky. The company had originally planned to build 1,000 units, but production costs began spiraling out of control. At the same time, new federal safety and emissions regulations were looming, making it even more difficult to justify moving forward. By 1970, AMC executives pulled the plug, and the dream of an American mid-engine supercar was over. Only 6 completed AMX IIIs exist today, making it one of the rarest American performance cars ever built. Despite its failure to reach production, The AMX III remains a legend among enthusiasts. It was a glimpse into an alternate reality where AMC could have been a serious player in the high-performance world. Had things gone differently, we might be talking about AMC in the same breath as Daytona, Ferrari, or Lamborghini. Instead, the AMX III remains a lost masterpiece, a car that had everything going for it except timing. Today, those 6 cars are among the most valuable and sought-after AMC vehicles in existence. Occasionally, one will surface at a high-profile auction, drawing attention from collectors who appreciate its rarity and historical significance. Though AMC is long gone, the AMX III serves as a reminder that, for one brief moment, the company dared to dream big. It may never have had a chance to prove itself on the road or track, but for those who know its story, the AMX III stands as one of the greatest could-have-been supercars of all time. The 1964 Cheetah Coupe is one of those cars that seem almost mythical, a machine so wild and extreme that it barely existed at all. Born from an ambitious dream to take on the Shelby Cobra and win on the track, the Cheetah was designed with raw speed in mind. It was brutally fast, dangerously light, and utterly unforgiving. It was the kind of car that could make legends out of those who could master it and humble anyone who couldn't. The brainchild of Bill Thomas, a California-based tuner who had worked closely with Chevrolet, the Cheetah was meant to be a Cobra killer. Thomas saw what Carroll Shelby had done, stuffing a big American V8 into a lightweight European-style chassis, and thought he could do better. He convinced Chevrolet to back his project, securing factory support and access to the potent 327 cubic inch V8. The result was a car that looked like nothing else, with a long, curvaceous front end, a bubble-like cockpit, and a brutally short wheelbase that made it as nimble as it was unstable. One of the first things that struck people about the Cheetah was just how minimal it was. This wasn't a car built for comfort or long highway cruises. It was a purpose-built racing machine, and everything about it reflected that. The cockpit was so tight that the engine sat practically next to the driver, separated by only a thin metal panel. The seating position was awkward, visibility was limited, and heat from the engine made the cabin almost unbearable. But none of that mattered because the Cheetah was built for one thing. With a lightweight tubular frame and fiberglass body, the Cheetah tipped the scales at just over 1,500 pounds, hundreds of pounds lighter than a Cobra. And with a high-revving Chevy 327 V8 under the hood, pushing out anywhere from 375 to 500 horsepower depending on the tune, the power-to-weight ratio was absolutely insane. In a straight line, the Cheetah was an unstoppable force, capable of reaching speeds up to 185 miles/hour, a staggering number for the mid-1960s. One owner recalled the experience of driving it. "I bought the Cheetah for racing, but I quickly realized this wasn't a car. It was a missile. It weighs almost nothing, but if you don't know what you're doing, you'll end up in the bushes at the first turn. The acceleration is violent, and the back end is always trying to step out on you. You can't just mash the gas and hope for the best. It demands respect, but if you get it right, it's the most thrilling car you'll ever drive." Despite its incredible performance potential, the Cheetah had a major problem. Its chassis simply wasn't built to handle the kind of speed and power it was capable of. The car's structure flexed under extreme loads, and the suspension, though competent, wasn't sophisticated enough to keep it fully under control. In a straight line, the Cheetah was a rocket, but on a road course, it was a handful. The short wheelbase made it twitchy, and drivers had to constantly fight to keep it from snapping sideways. Then, just as the Cheetah was gaining momentum, disaster struck. A fire at Bill Thomas's shop in 1965 destroyed much of the tooling and inventory, setting the program back significantly. Around the same time, Chevrolet was beginning to back away from direct involvement in racing, pulling the support that had made the Cheetah possible in the first place. With no funding and a car that needed serious refinement, production ended after only a handful of cars were built. Estimates vary, but most sources agree that fewer than 30 were completed. The Cheetah never got the chance to challenge the Cobra on the world stage. It was simply too extreme, too raw, and too unpolished to succeed as a production race car. But that's exactly what makes it so special today. The few surviving examples are among the most coveted and valuable American performance cars of the era. While the Cobra became an icon, the Cheetah became a legend, a car that never had a fair shot but still managed to leave an indelible mark on automotive history. For those lucky enough to experience one, the Cheetah remains one of the most visceral, unhinged, and exhilarating cars ever built. It was a machine designed with no compromises, a car that demanded absolute skill and respect from its driver. And for those who could tame it, there was nothing else quite like it. The 1966 Ford GT40 Mk II in street trim wasn't just a sports car, it was a barely restrained race machine that somehow, against all odds, found its way onto public roads. In an era when the most exotic European supercars were struggling to break 170 miles per hour, this American brute, forged in the fires of competition, could smash past 200. It was an anomaly, an engineering marvel, and a terrifyingly raw experience. The GT40's origins are the stuff of legend. After Enzo Ferrari humiliated Henry Ford II by pulling out of a business deal at the last minute, Ford swore revenge. He wasn't interested in just making a fast car. He wanted to crush Ferrari where it hurt the most, on the racetrack at Le Mans. The result was the GT40, a low, wide, and brutally powerful endurance racer built with one goal in mind: winning. And when it did. After a few difficult early years, Ford dominated Le Mans, sweeping the podium in 1966 with the GT40 Mk II, powered by a monstrous 427 cubic inch big block V8. That should have been the end of the story, but for a few lucky individuals, Ford made an almost unthinkable decision: to put the GT40 on the street. There was no business case for it, no real demand, just a handful of wealthy and fearless enthusiasts who wanted to experience the same kind of speed and power that had humiliated Ferrari on the world stage. Unlike most road-going race cars, the GT40 Mk II didn't undergo significant changes to make it more civilized. It was still brutally low to the ground, so much so that drivers often had to lift the car's famous or gull-wing-style doors just to clear curbs or bumps in the road. The seats were thinly padded racing buckets designed for endurance racing, not comfort. The pedals were positioned so close together that you had to drive in narrow racing shoes, and the entire cockpit would heat up to unbearable levels due to the proximity of the massive V8 engine sitting right behind the driver's head. One owner, recalling his first experience behind the wheel of a road-going GT40 Mk II, put it simply, "I knew it was fast, but when the speedometer went past 200 miles per hour, I realized this wasn't just a car, it was a weapon. The sound alone is enough to shake your bones, and the way it pulls in every gear is just unreal. You don't drive this car, you survive it." Driving a GT40 on public roads was as exhilarating as it was impractical. The ride was harsh, the visibility was poor, and maneuvering through city traffic felt like trying to steer a missile through a shopping mall. The suspension was race-tuned, meaning that while it handled brilliantly at high speeds, it could be punishing over potholes or rough pavement. At lower speeds, the unassisted steering was heavy, the clutch was brutally stiff, and the car's unforgiving nature meant that it wasn't the kind of machine you casually took out for a weekend cruise. But then, there was the acceleration. The heart of the GT40 Mk II was its 7.0-liter V8, an engine designed for endurance racing, producing over 450 horsepower. Unlike the high-revving European supercars of the era, the GT40's power came in massive, earth-shaking waves of torque. It launched forward with a ferocity that few road cars could match, pinning the driver to the seat as the exhaust bellowed with a deep, menacing growl. Top speed? Somewhere north of 200 miles per hour. In the mid-1960s, that number was almost unthinkable for a road car. To put it into perspective, the Ferrari 275 GTB, one of the fastest European sports cars of the time, topped out at around 165 mph. The GT40 wasn't just fast, it was in a league of its own. Only a handful of GT40 Mk IIs were ever converted for road use. Some were factory-built street versions, while others were modified by private owners who wanted to tame, or at least attempt to tame, this race-bred monster for public roads. Today, they are among the rarest and most valuable American cars ever made, with collectors paying astronomical prices for the chance to own a piece of Le Mans history. For those who had the privilege and the courage to drive one on the street, the GT40 Mk II wasn't just another fast car. It was a machine that demanded respect, rewarded skill, and offered an experience that no modern supercar could truly replicate. It was the closest thing to piloting a Le Mans winner on the open road, and for that reason, it remains one of the most legendary street cars ever created. The 1969 Pontiac Grand Prix SSJ by Hurst stands as one of the hidden gems of the muscle car era, an understated powerhouse wrapped in luxury. On the surface, it appears to be another stylish, full-size Pontiac, a luxurious and elegant ride for those who wanted comfort without sacrificing appearance. But beneath the polished exterior lay a performance machine that few knew about, even at the time. When Pontiac redesigned the Grand Prix in 1969, it moved to a more aggressive stance. The long, sleek body with its extended hood and broad grille gave the Grand Prix a striking look. But for those with an appetite for more power and exclusivity, Hurst Performance stepped in with the SSJ package. The SSJ was more than just a cosmetic upgrade. It was Pontiac's answer to the growing demand for high-performance luxury cars, blending the best of both worlds in one carefully crafted package. Only available through Hurst Performance and built in very limited numbers, the SSJ offered a unique combination of aggressive styling and luxury features. The car was offered in two colors, the Regal Cameo White with gold accents or Starlight Black with gold trim, making it look both sleek and distinguished. The exterior featured a vinyl roof, gold-painted hood, and special Hurst wheels, all of which set it apart from the standard Grand Prix. Inside, the SSJ wasn't lacking in luxury either, featuring leather upholstery, wood grain trim, a center console, and a variety of other premium touches that would make even the most discerning buyers feel right at home. The real magic, however, was under the hood. Pontiac offered the SSJ with the mighty 428 cubic inch Ram Air 4 engine, which was capable of delivering a staggering 390 horsepower. Though, given the car's capabilities, it's safe to assume it was producing even more than that. Paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, the SSJ became a true sleeper, offering muscle car-level performance in a luxurious, full-size package. Its powerful 428 V8 allowed the SSJ to accelerate from 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds, and it could achieve a top speed well above 140 mph. For its time, these were impressive figures, especially when compared to many of the more mainstream muscle cars of the era. One enthusiastic owner described the experience of driving the SSJ. People think it's just another Grand Prix at first glance, but when you press the accelerator, it wakes up like an angry beast. It's smooth, refined, and quiet in the cabin, but the moment you stomp on that gas pedal, it roars to life, and you realize it's not just a luxury car, it's a powerful, raw muscle car. It was the perfect blend of comfort and speed. You could cruise in it for hours, but when the need for power arose, you had more than enough at your disposal. Despite its extraordinary performance, the SSJ was never meant to be an all-out muscle car like the Pontiac GTO. It was a luxury car that offered muscle car enthusiasts something more refined, without sacrificing the raw power and adrenaline that came with a Pontiac V8. That combination made the Grand Prix SSJ a special vehicle, one that could be a cruiser by day and a street machine by night. Its rarity is part of what makes the SSJ so desirable today. With only a handful of these cars produced, and because of the limited number of Hurst-affiliated dealers that could offer the SSJ package, the car is incredibly rare. Production figures are murky, but it's believed that only about 200 SSJs were ever built, making it one of the rarest Pontiac muscle cars of the time. Many of these cars were sold with high-end options, and their history has only grown more interesting over the years. The car was a special order package, which means that even among Grand Prix owners, many were unaware that such a performance-oriented version even existed. As the years passed, the Grand Prix SSJ slipped into obscurity. While cars like the GTO and Firebird continued to dominate the muscle car landscape, the SSJ quietly faded from the mainstream memory. Even among Pontiac enthusiasts, Its rarity and low production numbers meant that it wasn't as widely recognized as other muscle cars from the era. But for those in the know, the SSJ represents a rare intersection of muscle car spirit and luxury. It was a car that defied easy categorization. Too refined to be just a muscle car, but too powerful to be dismissed as just a luxury cruiser. Today, the 1969 Pontiac Grand Prix SSJ by Hearst remains an undiscovered treasure for many collectors and classic car fans. It's often overshadowed by other, more famous muscle cars, and its true legacy is only appreciated by those who understand the significance of blending high performance with elegance. For anyone who's had the chance to experience one, the Grand Prix SSJ stands as a testament to the idea that luxury and performance can coexist in perfect harmony, making it an underrated classic that deserves far more recognition. The 1967 Shelby GT500 Super Snake is nothing short of a legend in the automotive world. When people think of Shelby Mustangs, they often imagine the raw power and unrelenting performance of machines like the GT350 or the GT500. But the Super Snake wasn't just another Mustang. This was a monster, a one-off creation that was far beyond what most muscle cars of the era could even dream of. Born out of a unique collaboration with Goodyear, Shelby originally created the Super Snake to test a set of high-performance tires. But as with many of Carroll Shelby's projects, the test car quickly morphed into something far more extraordinary. What Shelby had in mind was an all-out powerhouse, a car capable of testing tire durability at incredibly high speeds. What he built, however, was an iconic piece of automotive history, a machine so wild, so extreme, it became legendary before it even had a chance to hit the market. At the heart of the Super Snake was an engine that would make any gearhead's pulse race. A Ford 427 cubic inch V8, the same engine used in the Ford GT40 race car, producing an astonishing 500 horsepower. This was no ordinary engine. It was a monster designed for speed and raw power, and it could easily outpace nearly any car of its time. With such an engine, the Super Snake wasn't just fast. It was capable of reaching a top speed of over 170 mph, a figure that still blows the mind when you think about cars from the mid-1960s. But sheer speed was just one part of the equation. Shelby's vision wasn't to create a car that was only fast in a straight line. The Super Snake was meant to handle as well as it accelerated. With the iconic Shelby suspension, it was able to carve corners with precision, keeping that massive engine in check while providing a driving experience that was both thrilling and terrifying. One owner described the experience as something unforgettable. The first time I floored it, I thought I had made a terrible mistake. It doesn't just accelerate, it launches like a fighter jet. The car was an absolute monster, and with all that power, it demanded respect. What makes the Super Snake truly special, though, is that it never saw full-scale production. There was only one ever built, and that fact alone has made it a rare and highly sought-after treasure among collectors. Despite its enormous potential and awe-inspiring performance, the price tag for the Super Snake was simply too high for Shelby to justify putting it into mass production. It was a car that was so extreme, so beyond what was practical for the average consumer, that it would have been prohibitively expensive to build more of them. As a result, the car went from being a high-performance prototype to one of the most valuable and elusive vehicles in the world. This singular Shelby creation became more than just a test vehicle. It became an embodiment of the very spirit of muscle cars, unapologetic, raw, and wildly fun to drive. It was a symbol of what American engineering was capable of when there were no compromises, no constraints, and no fear of pushing boundaries. The Shelby GT500 Super Snake, with its 427 V8 and its 170+ mph top speed, represented the peak of 1960s performance, a time when American muscle cars ruled the streets, and drivers cared about nothing but power and speed. Today, the Super Snake is an incredibly rare collector's item, commanding a high price at auctions and only available to the most dedicated Shelby fans and collectors. But beyond its rarity, it represents a unique chapter in the story of American muscle, a car that was too extreme for its time, yet remains one of the most exhilarating machines ever created. For anyone fortunate enough to sit behind the wheel, the experience of driving the Super Snake is one that's hard to put into words. It's more than just a car, it's a test of skill, a reminder of the golden age of muscle cars, and an unbeatable rush of adrenaline. And while the Super Snake never became a production car, its legacy lives on in the hearts of muscle car enthusiasts, Shelby aficionados, and anyone who appreciates the sheer thrill of the open road. There's no other car quite like it, and with only one ever built, the 1967 Shelby GT500 Super Snake remains one of the most coveted and iconic vehicles in automotive history. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona 426 Hemi is one of the most iconic muscle cars in history, not just for its outrageous looks, but for its unrelenting performance. Built with one goal in mind, dominating the NASCAR circuit, the Daytona was a machine engineered to break records and challenge convention, and it did so with style and power. At first glance, the Charger Daytona looks like a car built for the track, with its outrageous, oversized rear wing and radically altered front nose cone. It's a design that could easily make you laugh, or even think it was just a gimmick. But as any owner will tell you, that wing wasn't just for show, it had a purpose. The Daytona was designed to cheat the wind, creating downforce to keep the car planted at incredibly high speeds, which was critical for the NASCAR races it was created to dominate. While its design might have looked bizarre to some, there was a method to the madness, and it worked exceptionally well. Underneath the hood, the Daytona was packing a serious punch. The 426 cubic inch Hemi V8 engine was the heart of the machine, producing an incredible 425 horsepower. This engine, known for its rugged durability and extraordinary power, was mated into a car that was built for speed. With that much power on tap, the Daytona could reach speeds over 200 miles per hour, a feat that was unheard of for production cars in the late 1960s. And even though it wasn't the most aerodynamic car on the road at the time, its unique design allowed it to cut through the air with the efficiency of a dedicated race car. One owner, reflecting on the driving experience, noted, "People laugh at the giant wing until they see me pass them at 180 miles. Then they just stare." That wing was no joke. It wasn't a styling feature, but a vital piece of the car's ability to stay planted and maintain stability at those terrifying speeds. And while the Charger Daytona might have looked wild on the outside, once it hit the open road, it proved its worth. The car wasn't just fast, it was blisteringly fast, with a top speed that left other muscle cars in the dust. What made the Charger Daytona even more extraordinary was its limited production. Dodge only built 503 examples for the street, and most of them were sold to satisfy NASCAR homologation requirements, meaning they were mostly used in racing circuits rather than daily driving. This limited production, combined with its performance pedigree, makes the Daytona an ultra-rare collector's item today, with prices skyrocketing over the years as the car's status as an automotive icon continues to grow. On the track, the Charger Daytona was a monster. It dominated NASCAR in the late 60s, winning races and pushing the limits of what was possible in American stock car racing. The Daytona wasn't just a pretty face with a big wing, it was a legitimate contender, and its race victories proved that it was as capable as it looked wild. Its performance on the street, however, was no less impressive, giving owners the feeling of driving a race car for the road. Even though the Daytona was initially overshadowed by the more familiar muscle car icons like the Mustang or Camaro, its distinct design and outrageous performance quickly earned it a place in the history books. And while the car may have initially turned heads for all the wrong reasons, today it's one of the most revered and sought-after muscle cars, with collectors willing to pay top dollar for an example in good condition. For those fortunate enough to own one, the experience of driving a 1969 Charger Daytona is something that cannot be replicated. The raw power of the 426 Hemi engine, combined with the car's aggressive styling and unique aerodynamic features, make it an unforgettable driving experience. Whether you're behind the wheel, pushing it toward 200 miles a year, or simply admiring it from the outside, the Daytona demands attention. It's a testament to the excesses of the muscle car era, and a reminder that sometimes the most outrageous designs are the ones that leave the biggest impression. In a world where cars often become more refined, more efficient, and less wild, the 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona 426 Hemi stands as a monument to a time when American automakers weren't afraid to build cars that were big, bold, and fast, no matter how they looked. The 1969 Chevrolet Corvette ZL1 is one of the most legendary and elusive American muscle cars, and for good reason. It's a car that many enthusiasts know by name, but only a handful have ever experienced firsthand. Often overshadowed by more famous Corvette models, the ZL1 represents a perfect example of GM's relentless pursuit of performance during the golden age of muscle cars. A true testament to power, exclusivity, and raw performance, the ZL1 was an absolute beast on the road. When you first look at a 1969 ZL1, you might mistake it for a standard Corvette of the era. Its sleek, curvaceous body and aggressive stance look striking, but nothing could prepare you for what's under the hood. The ZL1 was powered by an all-aluminum 427 cubic inch V8 engine, a true masterpiece of engineering. This engine wasn't just a larger version of the famous big block V8. It was an entirely different animal, designed specifically for racing. Producing over 500 horsepower, the ZL1 was a massive leap forward in terms of power, especially considering that most cars of the time weren't even close to this level of output. One owner, recalling their first experience with the car, said, "It looks like a regular Corvette, but when you step on it, you realize this thing is a monster. It feels like it's trying to break free." And that's an understatement. The ZL1's acceleration was explosive, its engine growling with a deep, guttural sound as it surged forward. The car was designed to be a race-ready machine, and when you put your foot down, it felt every bit the part. It was built to do one thing: go fast and do it better than any Corvette before it. The top speed of the ZL1 was an impressive 180 mph, which at the time put it in an exclusive league of its own. It was faster than almost every production car on the road, and it had the handling and stability to back it up. The lightweight aluminum construction of the engine and other components helped the ZL1 maintain a balance between speed and agility, making it incredibly fast on straightaways, while still being surprisingly nimble when navigating corners. But it was also a dangerous car. With that much power packed into a street car, the ZL1 could be difficult to control, especially for drivers who weren't accustomed to its raw, untamed nature. It wasn't a car that forgave mistakes. It rewarded those who could harness its power, but it could just as easily punish those who couldn't. Despite being a production car, the ZL1 had a decidedly race-inspired feel, with its high-strung engine and firm suspension. It was also equipped with a heavy-duty cooling system to keep that engine running at peak performance during hard driving sessions, and an upgraded transmission to handle all the torque that came from the V8. But despite its performance pedigree, the ZL1 wasn't exactly built for comfort. It was designed for the track, and that was clear when you climbed into the cockpit. The interior was all business, no frills, just a focus on function and performance. What truly sets the ZL1 apart, though, is its rarity. Only 2 were built for public sale, making it one of the most exclusive and sought-after muscle cars of all time. This limited production run is a big part of what makes the ZL1 so special. While it may not have received the same level of recognition as other iconic Corvettes from the same era, its reputation among collectors and performance enthusiasts is unparalleled. The ZL1 has become a symbol of what happens when GM pours everything it has into creating a car that can defy expectations, and it has remained one of the most revered Corvettes in history. One of the reasons the ZL1 remains so captivating is because of its aura of mystery. It wasn't designed for mass production, and for most of the public, it was little more than a rumor. But for those in the know, the ZL1 was a racing legend, and its power, combined with its extreme rarity, cemented its place in the pantheon of great American muscle cars. Driving a 1969 Corvette ZL1 is an experience that most people can only dream about. But for those who were lucky enough to get behind the wheel, it was a wild ride, an exhilarating, nerve-wracking, heart-pounding thrill that left an impression on everyone it passed. The ZL1 wasn't just another muscle car, it was a ferocious animal built to dominate, and it did so with a grace and raw power that few cars could ever hope to match. In the world of American muscle cars, the 1969 Chevrolet Corvette ZL1 stands as a rare example of how far automakers were willing to push the boundaries of performance. It was fast, it was dangerous, and it was a true collector's dream, one that continues to turn heads and leave an indelible mark on the hearts of automotive enthusiasts. The 1965 Shelby Daytona Coupe is not just a car, it's a living, breathing piece. The car's presence on the racetrack sent a powerful message. The American sports car was here to compete on the world stage. The Shelby Daytona Coupe's design is nothing short of iconic. Its long, flowing lines and distinctive rear end, designed for optimal aerodynamics, give it a fierce and purposeful look. Unlike any other car of its time, the coupe was crafted to slice through the air at extreme speeds. Its smooth, aerodynamic body not only turned heads, but helped it perform like no other car in its class. Every curve and contour was meticulously engineered to reduce drag and enhance stability, allowing the coupe to maintain its composure even at high speeds. Whether it's the aggressive nose, the wide fenders, or the subtles with the driver. Sitting behind the wheel, you immediately feel like you're part of something special. There's a certain rawness to it. The car doesn't coddle you. It's demanding, but in the best way possible. Every movement, every turn of the steering wheel, and every push of the pedal feels purposeful. The feedback from the road is direct, and the car's handling is crisp, making it feel like an extension of your own body. Whether on the racetrack or cruising on an open road, the Daytona Coupe is a car that invites you to drive with intent. Driving a Shelby Daytona Coupe isn't for the faint of heart. It's an experience that takes you back to the days when racing was all about skill and raw power. The car doesn't have the cushy comforts of modern vehicles. It's loud, it's aggressive, and it demands focus. But it's this very characteristic that makes it so exciting. When you press the gas pedal, you're not just accelerating. You're launching into the heart of American racing history. The coupe's performance on the track was legendary. With its ability to reach speeds over 190 mph, it was a true competitor. The 1968 Baldwin Motion Phase 3 GT Corvette is a car that transcends the typical notion of performance. If you ever get the chance to sit behind the wheel of one, you quickly realize that you're not just driving a Corvette, you're commanding a street-legal dragster. As one owner so perfectly put it, this isn't just a kifra, it's a street-legal dragster. You either respect it or it will scare you to death. And that sums up the Phase 3 GT perfectly. It's a car built for speed, raw power, and pure adrenaline, with an intensity that makes most performance cars seem tame in comparison. Developed by the legendary Motion Performance, a company known for transforming ordinary Corvettes into extraordinary machines, the Baldwin Motion Phase 3 GT Corvette took the Corvette's already impressive performance and cranked it up to 11. While the base Corvette was no slouch, this was something else entirely. The Phase 3 GT was fitted with a heavily modified 427 cubic inch V8 engine that could generate up to 550 horsepower, a mind-boggling figure for a car of its era. The engine was a beast, delivering power in waves and offering acceleration that could only be described as violent. When you floored it, the car would launch with such force that it almost felt like the pavement itself was being torn up beneath the tires. One of the most incredible aspects of the Baldwin Motion Phase 3 Corvette was its ability to run a quarter mile in the 10-second range, something that was nearly unheard of for street cars at the time. While most muscle cars were still struggling to break the 12-second barrier, this Corvette was running times that could hold their own on a drag strip against some of the most powerful dedicated race cars of the day. The Phase 3 GT could easily hit speeds over 160 mph, but it wasn't just about top speed. It was about the relentless surge of power that could snap your neck back with every acceleration. The car had a brutal, untamed nature, and it demanded your full attention at all times. The modifications made by Baldwin Motion didn't stop at the engine. The entire car was built to handle the kind of power it was producing. The suspension was beefed up, the brakes were upgraded, and every aspect of the vehicle was tuned to ensure that it could handle the speed and acceleration it was capable of. Despite its power, the Phase 3 GT was still a Corvette, meaning it had the trademark style and agility that made the base model so beloved. However, the enhancements made it a machine that was more about unfiltered power than anything else. The car's aggressive stance and wild exhaust notes announced its presence long before it was visible. It was a car built to be loud, fast, and unapologetically American. The interior, while still familiar to those who know the Corvette well, was stripped down to accommodate the performance-oriented needs of the Phase 3 GT. It was far from a luxury car. This was a machine designed with one thing in mind: performance. The driving experience was raw and visceral. The steering was heavy, the pedals felt stiff, and the seat held you in place as you gripped the wheel and pushed the accelerator. It wasn't comfortable in the traditional sense. It was a car that demanded focus, control, and respect. The Baldwin Motion Phase 3 GT Corvette was far from a mass-market car. Only a handful were ever built, making it one of the rarest and most sought-after Corvettes of all time. Its exclusivity, combined with its insane performance, makes it a holy grail for collectors and muscle car enthusiasts. But beyond its rarity, the Phase 3 GT is a testament to what happens when you take an already great car and push it beyond its limits. Baldwin Motion's modifications turned an ordinary Corvette into an absolute monster of a machine. A car that could melt tires, shatter records, and leave a trail of awestruck onlookers in its wake. There's an undeniable thrill that comes with owning and driving a Baldwin Motion Phase 3 GT Corvette. Every time you turn the key and hear that engine roar to life, you're reminded that you're not just in any car. You're in a piece of automotive history, a machine that was designed to defy the limits of what was possible at the time. It's a car that feels like it was born to race, a car that, for all its power, demands a level of respect that most street cars simply don't. For those fortunate enough to own one, it's more than just a car. It's a legendary piece of the American muscle car era, a car that takes no prisoners and leaves no doubt that it is one of the fastest, most intense machines ever built. The 1962 Devon SS remains one of the most captivating cars in the history of American sports cars, with an allure that transcends its relatively limited production. Often mistaken for a European exotic due to its styling, the Devon SS was an American-built roadster that defied expectations in both performance and design. People ask me if it's a Ferrari. I just smile and let the Chevy V8 do the talking, one enthusiastic owner remarked, summing up the car's inherent power and presence. Created by Bill Devon, a man with a vision to bring an American alternative to the dominant European sports car scene, the Devon SS was a masterpiece of both engineering and design. Devon's goal was to build a car that could take on Ferrari, Porsche, and other European heavyweights. Something lighter, faster, and distinctly American in its muscle. Powered by the Chevrolet 327 V8 engine, the Devon SS brought raw American performance to a car that was designed with European elegance. The engine was known for its reliability and performance, providing the car with around 270 horsepower, depending on the engine variant. This power-to-weight ratio made the Devon SS a true contender, capable of reaching top speeds of 150 km/h or more, an astonishing feat for its time. The Devon SS's performance was not just about power, it was also about the handling. The lightweight tubular steel chassis allowed for agile, responsive handling, while the car's aerodynamic design ensured it could cut through the air with ease. This made the Devon SS one of the most exhilarating roadsters of the era, a car that could carve through corners with precision and explode down the straightaways. It wasn't just fast, it was a car that demanded to be driven hard, a true sports car in every sense. Visually, the Devon SS combined the best of both worlds, American muscle and European sophistication. Its body was designed in the style of European roadsters, with smooth, curving lines and a low, aggressive stance. The sleek, handcrafted aluminum body gave the car an exotic look, while the Chevrolet 327 V8 under the hood brought a unique American muscle car touch to the equation. The car's fiberglass body was lightweight and strong, which contributed to the car's overall performance. Yet, despite its undeniable style and performance, the Devon SS never achieved the recognition it deserved during its production run, largely due to its rarity and high price. Only around 100 units were built, making it an exclusive car even when it was new. The Devon SS wasn't without its challenges. The price was steep, especially for a car that was a one-off in terms of its production. In the early 1960s, buyers could have purchased more established and widely recognized sports cars for a similar price, such as the Chevrolet Corvette, which made it harder for the Devon SS to gain widespread traction. The car's production was also hindered by financial constraints and limited resources. As a result, the Devon SS faded into obscurity, even as it proved itself to be a worthy competitor to the European exotics it was built to challenge. Yet, despite its limited success, the Devon SS has become a beloved icon among car collectors and enthusiasts. Today, it stands as a symbol of American innovation and ambition, a car that represented an attempt to create something truly special, a fusion of American engineering with European style and performance. Owners who have had the privilege of owning a Devon SS often describe it as more than just a car. It's a conversation piece, a testament to a time when the boundaries of performance and design were being pushed to new heights. The experience of owning a Devon SS is unlike any other. It's a car that commands attention, not only because of its unique styling, but because of the history it carries with it. It tells the story of an ambitious attempt to challenge the status quo, to bring an American-made roadster into the same league as the finest European sports cars. One owner shared, "Driving it feels like stepping back into a time when cars were raw, unpolished, and full of character." It's not just about speed, it's about the way the car makes you feel. Collectors and enthusiasts often remark on the Devon SS's rarity, and that scarcity has made it a coveted piece of automotive history. The car's combination of American power and European-inspired design sets it apart from other American sports cars of the era. While it may not have achieved the fame it deserved when it was produced, it has certainly earned its place among the greats of American automotive design and performance. In the decades since its production, the Devon SS has remained a hidden gem, an underappreciated classic that few ever got to experience firsthand. Its rarity and the limited number still in existence make it an exclusive find for collectors lucky enough to come across one. Today, it stands as a reminder of the boldness and ambition of Bill Devon. The 1969 Mercury Cyclone Spoiler II stands as one of the most underappreciated and overlooked muscle cars of the late 1960s. Despite being built with NASCAR in mind, this machine was designed to not only dominate the track, but also deliver street-ready performance. It looks like a regular muscle car, but it was built for NASCAR. "It just keeps pulling and pulling," said one owner, encapsulating the essence of what makes the Cyclone Spoiler II so remarkable. Its ability to merge the worlds of racing and street driving seamlessly. From the outside, the Cyclone Spoiler II may appear to be just another member of the muscle car family. However, beneath the surface lies a high-performance race car built with aerodynamics, precision, and speed in mind. The 428 Cobra jet engine, Mercury's powerhouse, was the heart and soul of this car. It produced a formidable 335 horsepower, giving the Spoiler II more than enough power to stand out on the road. Yet it wasn't just about brute strength. The car was meticulously engineered for efficiency, able to hit a top speed of 157 mph. This was far from just a drag race car. It was made for high-speed performance, agility, and long-haul endurance. What truly set the Cyclone Spoiler II apart from its contemporaries was its NASCAR heritage. Mercury needed to build a car that could not only perform on the race circuit, but also meet the homologation requirements necessary to compete in NASCAR events. As a result, the Spoiler II's design incorporated a range of modifications intended to make it more aerodynamically efficient. The aggressive front end, sculpted body lines, and rear deck spoiler were all implemented to reduce drag and increase stability at high speeds. It was a car built to slice through the air with minimal resistance, making it incredibly fast on both the straightaways and in the corners. Despite all of this advanced engineering, the Spoiler II was tragically overlooked by many muscle car enthusiasts at the time. Even though it was capable of matching or surpassing the performance of many of its more famous contemporaries, like the Chevrolet Chevelle SS or the Pontiac GTO, it never gained the same level of fame. Perhaps part of the reason for this was its limited production run. Only a few hundred units were ever built, making it a rare find on the market. With Mercury's focus on higher volume models and the growing popularity of other muscle car brands, the Spoiler II didn't achieve the fame it so richly deserved. Many owners of the Cyclone Spoiler II, however, attest to its remarkable abilities. When you put your foot down, it wakes up like an angry beast. You can feel it pulling relentlessly as you climb through the gears, one enthusiastic owner shared. The 428 Cobra jet engine delivered power smoothly and with authority, never feeling out of breath, no matter how fast the car was traveling. In fact, some have even said that the car seems to come alive in ways other muscle cars simply don't, responding to the driver's every touch with unbridled enthusiasm. Behind the wheel, the driving experience of the Cyclone Spoiler II is nothing short of exhilarating. While it carries the muscle car genes of its era, raw power, straight-line speed, and a beefy, throaty exhaust note, it also has a surprising amount of handling capability. Thanks to its aerodynamic design and engineering, the car feels balanced and planted even at higher speeds, making it an absolute joy to drive on winding country roads and tight corners. The rear-wheel drive layout, combined with the strong 428 V8 engine, provides a driving experience that is engaging and rewarding for anyone behind the wheel. However, even in its prime, the Spoiler II never enjoyed the same widespread popularity as its competitors, despite the undeniable quality and speed it offered. By the time the muscle car era was at its peak, the Cyclone Spoiler II had already passed its prime. The Mercury brand, known for producing quality cars, lacked the extensive advertising and marketing reach that Ford and Chevrolet had, which ultimately left this gem flying under the radar. Still, a few enthusiasts have held on to their Spoiler IIs, keeping them as rare collectibles. As the years go by, these cars have started to gain more attention, particularly from collectors and enthusiasts who appreciate rare and unique muscle cars. Many of the original cars have been restored, and their value has begun to climb as more people realize just how special these cars truly are. For those who have the opportunity to drive or own one, the Cyclone Spoiler II is a car that consistently surprises. Despite being overshadowed by larger, more famous muscle cars, it has a charisma and a driving experience that still captivates. It's a race car for the street, but it doesn't just get you there, it makes you feel like a part of racing history, one owner remarked.